Hello, AMP2 students. This video is going to continue on talking about the digestive system. We're up to the peritoneum and the mesentery. So we're going to talk about those. Let me go to the objectives here. So it might be a little shorter video because I want to just talk about the function of the peritoneum and the function of the individual mesenteries that are within our abdominal pelvic cavity. So everybody hopefully remembers the peritoneum from lab, and I have the picture pulled up. There we go. This is the picture that we used in lab. The peritoneum is that serous membrane that has two layers. We have the parietal peritoneum that's kind of lining the inside of the abdominal cavity and the all around, posterior and anterior. And then we have the visceral peritoneum, which is hugging the surface of our internal organs, most of our internal organs. And so, and then that creates this little cavity between them. And the serous membrane, the parietal peritoneum and visceral peritoneum produce a fluid, small amount of fluid that's present in the peritoneal cavity, and that helps lubricate all of the movements that's going on within our abdominal cavity. So that's very nice, because I'll show you a video. I haven't pulled it up yet. Show you a video showing peristalsis, and you can kind of see the movement that's going on. There we go, within our abdominal cavity. So this is with the small intestines, but you can see that mixing and the peristalsis going on. So that small intestines there has the visceral peritoneum on its surface. And so since those are moving around and rubbing up against each other or other structures, because we have that fluid in that peritoneal cavity, it does a nice job of reducing friction in there, and that's kind of the reason that we, there we go, the reason that we have that.
Let's talk about Grammarly.
Oh, so
the digital
sorry.
writing assistant, more than 20.
Sorry about that. So that way we have a nice friction-free environment for all those abdominal organs to move around, and so because they're going to be moving quite often. So that's the function of the peritoneum. It just allows for the abdominal organs to move around freely in there without any friction resulting from their movement. So, all right. So then next, we're going to talk about the mesenteries. So individual mesenteries. So they generally will talk about the mesentery as the kind of the blanket term for all these structures. I usually don't do that. I usually just talk specifically about the different parts. And let me go back here. Realize that the mesentery are all these parts that we looked at, most of those in lab. They're extensions of the peritoneum. So they're part of the peritoneum. They're usually extensions that are going to between different structures within the body. So the greater omentum, lesser omentum, falciform ligament, mesentery proper, in lab we just called it the mesentery. We didn't do the proper thing. And then mesocolon we didn't talk about. But those are the 5 mesenteries that you should know what their function is within the body. So generally most of them are their function is to suspend and kind of support and hold in place all of these abdominal organs that they're attached to. Except greater omentum is not so much doing a lot of attaching one. It does attach the greater curvature of the stomach to the transverse colon, so I guess it is kind of stabilizing and supporting those structures. But it's a very large structure, and so it stores a lot of fat, so it's a good place for fat storage. And then it's because it has that fat in it, it helps to kind of insulate as well, so insulate the abdominal organs. So that's what the greater omentum is doing. Sometimes I call it the fatty apron because it kind of hangs, or I call it a curtain, sort of hangs in front of our abdominal organs. So that's the greater omentum. The lesser omentum's much smaller than the greater one, and it's just this extension of the peritoneum that goes between the liver and the stomach. And so again, it's there to help keep those structures in place with each other, so helping to stabilize their position within the abdomen. And then the falciform ligament, that's a little fold of peritoneum that attaches the liver to the anterior wall of the abdomen. So it's again going to hold the liver and its various lobes in place. Then the mesentery proper, this is the one that we just called mesentery when we were in lab. But mesentery proper is another term for it. But that's that membrane of the peritoneum that was between the small intestinal loops. And since we didn't have lab, you couldn't really appreciate that all that mesentery that was connected to the small intestines was then connected to the posterior wall of the abdomen. And so it helped to keep the small intestines kind of in the center of the abdomen. So if we didn't have that, then they would kind of just by gravity like fall down into the pelvic cavity. So that mesentery also kept them in place and then held them together with each other too. And then the mesocolon is a fold of peritoneum that attaches our large intestines to the posterior abdominal wall. That's one that we did not look at in lab, but it kind of it says it in the name. The colon part indicates the large intestine. So that's just going to make sure that our colon stays in place as well. All right. So a lot of those are based on just keeping things in the right position within the abdomen. So they call it supporting, suspending, and stabilizing. So greater omentum does more kind of supporting. It has the fatty tissue and helps insulate. The other thing that will run through those folds of peritoneum, a lot of them, is blood vessels, even some nerves too. And I have a picture. Yeah. So this is the picture of the mesentery. So these are our small intestinal loops here, and that's the mesentery. So you can actually see the blood vessels. Those are the mesenteric arteries and veins running through that, and there's probably nerves in there too. Can't really see them very well, but and lymphatics in there too. So those are our mesenteries, and then the peritoneum. So kind of knowing their functions is what you'll need to know for lecture. All right, so I'll see you in the next video, and we'll start talking about the upper digestive tract.